Thank you for joining me for another episode of Taste of Magic. This episode, we're looking at even more spoilers for Return to Ravnica. This is the last week before we get the entire set spoiled, and we just have a handful of cards to look at before we get to look at the entire set. First, we're going to look at some Selesnya cards. First one is Armada Worm. If you like the Broodmate Dragon, then you're going to like this guy. He is 6 mana for a 5/5 Trampler. When he comes into play, you get a 5/5 Worm token that has Trample. That is 10 power of trample goodness for just 6 mana. So that is pretty awesome. Plus you get the 5/5 Trampler token that you can populate and make more of. This guy's awesome. He's a mythic rare, so he's not going to show up very often. But when he does, better watch out. Next up is the new Selesnya Guildmage, who is awesome as well. 6 mana, you get a 3/3 Centaur token, and if that wasn't enough, for 4 mana you can populate it. Once you get that 3/3 out, now you're paying 2 less for your Centaurs. Paying 4 mana for a 3/3 Centaur is pretty amazing. And that's just assuming that's your best token. If you got the Armada Worm out, you can be making 5/5 tokens for 4 mana, which is pretty awesome. This one I like. One of my favorite guild mages so far. So, next we have Call of the Conclave. 2 mana for a 3/3 Centaur. Very nicely costed. Another way to get 3/3 Centaurs, you're going to have lots of different kinds of tokens you can get with Selesnya. Obviously, we can get 5/5 Worms, 3/3 Centaurs, 1/1 Birds, 1/1 Saprolines, possibly 2/2 Wolves or Bears. I don't know. So, get those populate cards ready. Next is Azorius. So we have Righteous Authority. This is kind of expensive. It's an enchant creature. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1 for each card in its controller's hand. And at the beginning of its controller's upkeep, that controller draws another card. Nice. Yeah. A little expensive, but it's going to get your extra cards. And it's going to make your creature bigger, assuming you have lots of cards in hand. So, that's cool. Next card, Azor's Alacritors. These guys are pretty cool. This is very flavorful for Azorius. Azorius is really getting the flavor treatment this time around. Last time, I think they really failed with the flavor of Azorius. This time, the keyword makes a lot of sense. These guys, they get filibuster counters, and if you get enough filibuster counters, then you win the game, because you have basically just argued that you should win the game. You lose filibuster counters if you get dealt damage, but you got to work with all your detain so to prevent all this damage. So these guys are cool. One of the neatest alternative win conditions I've seen. Next, Golgari. We have the Golgari Charm. This is an awesome charm. This is a really nice charm. So you can give all creatures -1/-1, turn the tide of combat, or just kill a bunch of 1/1s. So many uses. Destroy an enchantment. Most of the time you don't want to include that destroy enchantment card because you're like, what are the chances I need to? Now you can have something that can do other things just in case. Or regenerate each creature you control. Like, you have a really good matchup in combat, you attack with everything, they block with everything. Instead of everybody losing everything, they lose everything, and you get all your stuff back because it all regenerates. This is just... The Golgari Charm is awesome. I like this one a lot. Golgari Decoy. This guy is basically a taunting elf, but he's bigger than taunting elf. He's a 2/2. Costs a little more, but whenever he attacks, every creature that can block him must. Then you can scavenge him. The scavenge cost is a little high, but you're pretty much guaranteed that this guy's going to die, so I guess that's why they made the scavenge cost higher. So, next we have the Deathrite Shaman. This guy is all about getting cards out of graveyards. and exiling them. And depending on what card it is, you get different benefits. Exile a land, you get a mana. Exile a creature, you get 2 life. Exile an instant or sorcery, your opponents lose 2 life. This guy's awesome. He's a 1-drop. He's a 1/2. So that's already pretty nice. And then just for added value, he can remove whatever you want out of your opponent's graveyard and give you some kind of benefit. Uh, you can be removing spells, the flashback spells from Innistrad. You can get rid of their scavenge cards. You can get rid of their zombies that you can't get rid of normally. All kinds of stuff. So this guy's pretty awesome. Next, Rakdos. We got the Rakdos Cackler. It's a devil. It's a black red devil, and he is a 1/1 with Unleash for 1. So really, he's a 2/2 that can't block for 1. Because why would you not unleash him? Unless you really, really, really needed a blocker. This guy, first turn, is just going to do some damage. He's going to get out there. You play this guy, they play a 1/1. You're like, okay, let's play. He's awesome. Next we have Rakdos. He is the final guild leader of this set. And he is a 6/6 for just 4 mana. He's got flying and trample like you expect a demon to have. The only stipulation is you can only play him if your opponent lost life this turn. And it makes a lot of sense for Rakdos. In addition, whenever you cast a creature spell, it's reduced. The casting cost is reduced by the amount of mana that or the amount of life that your opponent's lost. So that's awesome. He's got trample, so he's going to get through once he attacks. And even if he only does 1 damage, that's going to reduce the mana cost of your creatures, and you can play even more unleashed creatures and just tear him a new one next turn. Next one, Firemind's Foresight. Now this one it's kind of expensive, 7 mana. You search your library for an instant card that costs 3, an instant card that costs 2, an instant card that costs 1. When I first saw this, I went, well, is this really powerful? I don't know. But then, if you think about it, the overload cards have really cheap casting costs, and then they have expensive overload cards. So even in the late game, they're pretty useful, and you can get a bunch of overload cards and really put this card to work. Also, this is going to be good for Commander. This is going to be a good Commander card. So, also, it's a nice picture. If you like Nid Mizzet, it's a really nice picture. Speaking of overload cards, we have an amazing one. It is Bluster Squall. Tap target creature you don't control for 1 blue mana, or for 4, you can tap all creatures you don't control. Amazing. This is a really, really impressive tap card. I mean, tapping everything that you don't control is pretty awesome. This is just nuts. Just nuts. So, how about some just colored cards? Green, we have the Wild Beastmaster. When it attacks, creatures you control get +X/+X, where X is its power. So it's automatically going to get 1. You want to boost this guy, and then attack and give all your creatures a bigger bonus. Maybe put a good enchant creature. Who knows what you're going to put on it. Anything would be good. Next we have a Mythic Rare. This is a black card, Necropolis Regent. It's a vampire. It gives all of your creatures the vampire ability from Innistrad, where if they do damage to a player, they get a +1/+1 counter. Pretty cool. It's like the Rakdos Heirs, but instead of giving the bonus to your vampires, it gives them to all your creatures. Why not? Make all your creatures vampires. Next, another black card, Ultimate Price. Destroy target mono-colored creature. Pretty cool. So it is 2 mana. It's an instant. It's on the same level as Doomblade. It's a little bit more restrictive than Doomblade, because but you can destroy black creatures, so you can only destroy monocolored creatures, so it's not as powerful in this setting, but interesting. Other settings it would be more powerful, but here it's not as powerful. It's the same thing with go for the throat. How go for the throat normally would be really powerful, but in the Mirrodin environment it wasn't as powerful. Another black card, Grave Betrayal. Basically, whenever a creature you don't control dies, you get it with a +1/+1 counter. Now this activates after undying, so the person with an undying creature would get the undying creature, I believe. But if they died again, then you could get them. And this art is also cool. If you look, it's the Shivan Dragon, but as a skeleton. So that's really neat. Expensive enchantment, but it has a neat effect. Really expensive. I mean, 7 mana enchantments. That's pretty rough, but might be worth it. Another white card. We have Rest in Peace. We got some crazy graveyard hate. So first we had the Deathrite Shaman and the Dryad Militant. This is Rest in Peace. We got remove all cards in all graveyards from the game. If a card would enter the graveyard, exile it. Wow. Just super anti-graveyard. After a graveyard set, I guess this is warranted. Mythic Rare, we have the Angel of Serenity. Crazy angel. 7 mana, 5/6 flyer. Comes into play. Exile 3 target creatures from battlefields and or graveyards. And then when she leaves the battlefield, they get returned to players' hands. Just crazy. So she comes into play. Either you have the option of removing 3 of their creatures just so they don't have them, or you can remove creatures from your graveyard so that when she dies, you get the creatures back. All kinds of crazy stuff you can do with this. Imagine using this with a Cloud Shift or lots of the cards from Avacyn Restored. She almost feels like she should be an Avacyn Restored. It's an angel, it's a giant angel. It has all these come into play effects. Who knows? Maybe it got pushed into the next set. Maybe they couldn't figure out exactly what they wanted to do. Another white card, Palisade Giant. 2/7 for 6 mana. It's a giant. Whenever damage would be dealt to you or another permanent you control, it is dealt to the Palisade Giant instead. So it's got Super Pariah on it. It's got 7 toughness, so it should be relatively hard to kill, but it's 6 mana, so at that point in the game, who knows what's going to happen. So, kind of interesting. Phantom General is the next one. Gives all your token creatures +1/+1. Great, like basically a token general or a token lord. It's a spirit and a soldier. So that's cool, because soldiers and spirits are your main tokens, pretty much. You get soldier tokens, you get spirit tokens. If only it was a human spirit soldier, then you could benefit. You can just decide what the heck tribal theme you want to go with. So he's cool. Alright, blue cards. We got the Psychic Spiral. This is a really interesting mill card. Every time you think there's, like, what else can they do with mill, they figure out something else. So you shuffle all your cards from your graveyard, then target player puts the top cards from his library equal to the number of the ones that you shuffled into your library. So you have 10 cards in your graveyard, you shuffle them in, and somebody else has to mill 10 cards. Interesting. Could be useful in limited. Limited, it's fairly easy to mill people. Milling is probably not going to be as much of an option at least until the Dimir come out. The Dimir are probably going to have some mill effects, but until then, wait until the spring when all 3 sets are together, and this card could be good. Search the City. This is a really interesting card. It's an enchantment. When it comes into play, you get 5 cards off your library and exile them. Then whenever you play a card that shares a name with one of those cards, it gets put into your hand. If you get all of the cards exiled and put them into your hand, sack Search the City, and you get an extra turn. So all kinds of crazy stuff going on here. So you get extra cards if you play the right ones. This can even be land. It doesn't say cast, it says play, which is very important because otherwise it would pretty much be useless because you would never be able to get the lands. You would just have to hope that you exile 5 spells. And you can. It seems doable. Not unlimited because you're not going to have doubles of all your spells, but definitely an interesting card for a combo deck. You can't play it in a singleton environment, so it's out for. You can't use it in Commander, but you're probably not going to use it in a standard deck. But who knows? Like this could be good enough for standard. It's hard to say. It's hard to say. Next, we have the Volatile Rig. It's 4 for a 4/4 as trample. It attacks every turn able. And then just ridiculousness happens. So, first off, this seems a little weird to me that it's a construct instead of a juggernaut. Though I guess flavor lies, it makes sense as a construct because somebody built this. It seems like a really crazy is it invention. So I guess I can understand it's a construct. But whenever it is dealt damage, flip a coin. If you lose the flip, it dies. You have to sack it. But when it dies, no matter how it dies, flip a coin. If you lose that flip, it does 4 damage to each creature and each player. Which could be a good thing if you want. Crazy. So the most coin flipping effects I've ever seen on one card. Well, not ever, but in recent time. And finally, we have a piece of equipment. This piece of equipment is awesome. It is the Civic Saber. It is 1 to cast, 1 to equip, very cheap. Equipped creature gets +1/+0 for each of its colors. So most you're going to be getting out of this for the most part is +2/+0 because this is Ravnica, so the majority of creatures are either 1 color or 2 colors. But don't dismiss it because that's essentially a bone splitter, and bone splitters are pretty awesome. They're so cheap, but getting a +2/+0 bonus is pretty amazing. Even just getting a +1/+0 bonus, I think this is pretty good. Like, if you were doing a draft, I would say this could easily be picked like third or fourth pick. It seems that good to me. But don't take my advice. I don't know what I'm talking about. Now, what I would really like with it is to go back and put it into some Alara decks. So imagine like Woolly Thaktar. Play Woolly Thaktar turn 3, equip this turn 4. You're attacking with an 8/4 turn 4. That's crazy. Or put it onto a composite elemental to make a 10/5, or actually a 13/8. Excuse me, a 13/8. So, or you know what else is if the Trans Guild Courier gets reprinted, which we saw that art floating around. The Trans Guild Courier is all colors. You can have a +5 bonus for just 2 mana. That'd be pretty awesome. So, that is all of the new cards that I wanted to show you to you. Now, if you search around on the internet, there was some people that opened up some boxes, and so there are more cards if you really want to look at them. I didn't specifically want to spoil them just because I was going off the official page, and I'm already up to 20 minutes anyway, just looking at those cards. So there were some interesting ones I saw, I'll admit. And if you're really interested, I will talk about some more of those next week. I'll also be talking a little bit about a primer for your pre-release, talking a little bit about the different guilds. So until next time, have a tasty day.